All right, we're back doing some buy, sell, hold real quick. Just a little advertisement announcement. We do have a Discord finally set up, so there's a link or just directions in the description of the video. You can follow that, join in our Discord, and ask us whatever questions you want. Trades, start sit when the season's going. If we get enough people in before the season starts, we'll even put together some leagues. So I'm excited about that. But in today's video, again, we're looking at buy, sell, hold. We're looking at two quarterbacks, two interesting quarterbacks that, once again, kind of volatile. They could fall off in value, they could increase in value potentially. And we're starting off with Deshaun Watson, who's obviously been very polarizing the last several years. 28, going on 29 years old. He'll be 29, sometime in the middle of the season. Keep trade cut has him as QB 26. His startup ADP, he's going about mid 8th round as the QB 23, and he's essentially worth an early 2nd round pick. And then you see his numbers from the last 3 years. 2023 averaged 18 points a game. 2022 15.1. Kind of, it was his first year back after a year and a half, 2 years of missing time. And then 2020 he was QB 6, averaging over 23 points a game. So Brian, buy, sell, hold on Deshaun Watson. Are you a believer that Deshaun Watson can get back to his old self?
I think I'm somewhere in between. Like, I don't think he necessarily has to get back to his old self in order to return value on this. So I think anytime you're getting a starting quarterback, for an early second, with his kind of upside, I think it's a smash play. Just accept it. I know he is a very polarizing player in general. I think everyone, he's definitely a guy that it seems like everyone has an opinion on one way or the other. And I think it's more, people are pretty low on him. So I think he's a good buy target. I assume he's going to be your QB2, but I think he definitely has, QB1 upside. We've seen it in the past. Granted, it's been a while. But I mean, the guy started out really hot. 3 of his first 4 seasons he was just amazing. And then, the holdouts and, all the other off the field stuff has really put a sour taste in a lot of people's mouths. But yeah, no, I think he's an easy, throw him into your lineup as your QB2. And I think you'll be happy. And I don't know if a lot of people have forgotten, probably not, because it was a pretty good part of his game. He has the rushing floor and the rushing upside too. So yeah, I think he's a buy.
Yeah. That rushing floor, by the way, is he averages 30 yards a game in his career. A little bit inflated by his first 2 years, but even the last 4 years, or even the last 2 years, if you want to take those, it's about a 25, 26 yards per game average. Last year was just under 24 yards. So yeah, a good floor, definitely a good floor of rushing. And yeah, I agree with you. When you can acquire, like you said, a starting quarterback with upside with an early 2nd round pick, I'm gonna do that most of the time. Now, Watson's a little interesting because you do have to factor in that people just don't like him. Yeah, and some people let that influence how they feel for fantasy. I tried trading Watson last year. Someone just said, I can't bring myself to trade for him because of their morals, right? So you definitely have to take that into account. He's going to be a little bit harder to trade, even if he does average 20 points a game or something. But yeah, I generally agree with you. I want to buy here. By the way, if you're looking at the points per game, I did take out the one game where he played he threw 5 passes and played 15% of the snaps, and he actually had negative 0.8 points. I took that game out, so that's why it's a little bit higher than the Fantasy Pros 15.1, I think it is, with that game included. But yeah, you look at it, his first 3 games of the year, he had over 21 points in 2 of the 3. Then he got hurt. missed a couple games, came back, got hurt again, missed a game, and then played a couple games. And I think they just like shut him down, even though like that shoulder was still bothering him from, I don't know if it was the first time he got hurt or the second time, but like he completed the last game he played. So it's not like he got injured and then was done for the year. So he was basically, what I'm trying to say, he was playing those, I think those last 2 games on his schedule hurt with his shoulder, kind of a bump shoulder, and still giving you 19 and 17.2 points, partly because of the rushing. So I agree with you. I do think he can get back to top 15, low end QB1. I don't know if he's going to get to, the 2020 year where he was, like it shows there, QB6 per game and I think QB5 overall or something. So I don't know if he's ever going to get back there, but it wouldn't surprise me if he gets close to that, and just think about the weapons he has. Like, you have Amari Cooper, that's a really good wide receiver. David Njoku, one of the better receiving tight ends. Jerry Jeudy's there, and Elijah Moore, 2 kind of disappointing players, but they still have talent. We'll see with the running backs. You have a good offensive line. So, yeah, I think I generally agree that I would send an early second. So the 203, I'm trying to remember, feels like ages since Dynasty rookie stuff. So 203 is basically, you're looking at,
I guess,
maybe
Keon
Michael
Coleman.
Penix.
Yeah, Trey Benson.
Keon Coleman. Yep, Trey Benson, Leggett, maybe Pearsall, that range of players. So yeah, I'll take Watson for one of those guys, kind of straight up. And I like his startup ADP as well. Startup drafts, it's funny because like startup drafts are probably the cheapest you're ever going to be able to acquire quarterbacks. I would think. Like, I think it's like the cheapest. You just look at some of the quarterbacks that are going, and then you think to yourself, like, let's just say like Baker Mayfield, and you think to yourself like Mike Evans is going before him in ADP, or Jaden Reed. Like, would I trade Baker Mayfield straight up for Jaden Reed? I don't think I would, right? But he's going earlier in ADP, so just a thought there. So
yeah. Another thing about Watson too, if you're worried about the injury concerns from the last couple of years, he's pretty easy to handcuff because his backup is Jameis Winston, who is, a good enough backup quarterback, and very cheap to acquire, I would assume. Maybe even on your waivers.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it is going to be very interesting, though, because, man, that contract and that trade just looks horrendous for the Browns. Yet they still made the playoffs, But, man, it looks so bad. They've gotten nothing from Watson. Suspended half the year in 2022, comes back and looks mediocre. Basically plays like 3-4 games last year, gets hurt, done for the year, and they're still on the books for 2-3 more years. So that's another thing, I guess, in his favor, is like they're tied to him for 3 more years. So even if he's average, he's going to be on the team. Now they could just like swallow it if he sucks and move on, but even if he's average, he's going to be on this team. So
yeah, and just looking at his numbers from the last couple of years, basically, playing 6 games each year. Well, last year, really playing 5. So if you just look at his numbers and you multiply them by 3, it's like the interceptions are definitely a problem. He had 4 last year and 5 the year before in 6 games, so that's not good. But, still threw for 7 touchdowns, ran for 3, which, that could easily, be 5 or 6. But the passing yards wouldn't be great, just over 3,000, 3,300, something like that. But still, on pace for about 500 rushing yards, and I don't think you should necessarily expect that. But, so a 3,000 yard passer with 21 passing touchdowns, 3 rushing touchdowns, 500 yards on the ground, like that's low end QB1 just because of that rushing, probably. Mm-hmm. That reminds me of like Daniel Jones numbers from a couple years ago. They're probably not too far off, which that's not a very ringing endorsement, but.
And I'd expect him to be way closer to 4,000 than 3,000.
Right. I would
215,
too.
220 per
Yeah.
game. Yeah. Tua is the next one. Another interesting one, 26 years old. QB 16, according to Keep Trade Cut. This was taken about like a week or so ago, so that could have changed. Startup ADP has him going at the early 4th round as QB 16. Is essentially worth a mid first round pick. The 106 this year is considered equivalent to Tua. And then you see his numbers there, which I think, especially last year, a lot of people would be a little bit surprised. I think we think that Tua was a lot better than he was last year, 16.7 points per game. Started off really, really well, the Broncos game and scoring all those points, but he wasn't that great last year, like QB 19 in points per game, even though he led the league in passing yards. So if someone offers you the 106, or what's that, Drake May or Roma Dunze, if you've already done your draft, that's one of those guys. For Tua, are you taking that deal, Brian, or do you think you should get a little bit more there?
Yeah, it's kind of an interesting thing to think about, right? Because again, he is the starting quarterback. He's been extended too, right? Like, what's his contract look like? If you could look that up.
No, they that's one of the things I was going to bring up. They haven't yet. They haven't come to a contract agreement with him yet, which is interesting because like Burrow and Herbert from the same draft class, those guys got locked up, feels like ages ago, and got the money, right? And Dolphins, I don't know. It's an interesting talk. Like, you can look at it as like Tua probably wants what Trevor Lawrence just got, right? Like, he has that argument, or what Herbert's getting or Burrow's getting, and the Dolphins might be like, we don't think you're worth that, So, anyways, go ahead and.
Yeah. So, but his 5th-year option has been exercised, right?
Yeah. He's on the Dolphins for 2024.
Yeah. Okay. Well, yeah, I think he's very good with the Dolphins. Like, he fits their whole scheme very well. Like you said, led the league in passing last year. I don't know if I would expect that to repeat necessarily, but it's entirely possible. I mean, he's got a lot of really big, yards after catch guys with Tyreek and the running backs and Waddle and stuff. So like we always say, like, they have a track team who plays football. Kind of like everyone's just so fast. So it's kind of nice being in that system, kind of along the same lines as Brock Purdy, like, not like to say that these guys aren't good. They're obviously starting level caliber in the NFL. But yeah, the 106, I don't know if I'm ready to pivot. I mean, I think you really have to have a strong opinion on, Drake May basically, or McCarthy, assuming that you're going to replace him with a quarterback. I don't think Odunze is enough to get it done for me. I mean, yeah, I think I'm just holding Tua at this point, and I think he will be worth more throughout this season than quarterback 16. But it's kind of hard to make the case too, because a lot of the guys in front of him are, first and second year players. The breakout with Jordan Love, like, it's kind of hard to see him like, well, who does he move in front of, but obviously, I think he has a QB1 upside if he can just get those interceptions a little more under control.
Yeah, I'd be very intrigued by someone offering me Drake May for Tua. Roma Dunze, I'd probably want a little bit more. Drake May, I would probably ask for a little bit more, but I may settle on it. Just because I just don't know, like, how much better can we expect from Tua, I guess. Like, he's literally on, like, what other situation in the entire NFL is better for a quarterback than the Dolphins?
Yeah, it's true.
Like, there's literally, I mean, probably none. I'm not saying, like, obviously you have better quarterbacks, but the situation, throwing the ball, you have an offensive head coach who's super creative and, high flying. You're playing in Miami, so it never gets cold, right? Yeah, there's some humidity in September, but it never gets cold. You have Tyreek Hill, Jalen Waddle. You have an awesome run game. Like, there's really no better situation. And what we saw last year, playing 17 games, was QB 19. QB 19 per game. Like, not a difference maker at all. Like, at all. And a lot of that, can he throw 4 more touchdowns than he did? Sure. Can he throw 4 less interceptions? Yeah. And then you're talking about, a 20, 25 point swing there, right? Which is probably pretty significant. But he's not going to rush. Like, he's definitely not going to rush the ball at all. Like, he had 75 yards rushing last year, And I don't think the Dolphins are going to change what they do in the run game, like, at all. Like, that's probably, besides Tyreek Hill, your best weapons, besides your receivers. Like, it's like Tyreek Hill, the run game, and Waddle. Like, those are your players, right? So, like, you're going to go through those players, and, Mostert's going to get his Achane. They drafted Warren. So, I don't know. I'd be intrigued by trading, getting Drake May just for the upside. Is there a risk involved? For sure. Like, but I think Tua is kind of showing us, like, he might just kind of be like a QB2 and not even necessarily a great one at that. So yeah, I would be intrigued. But again, I think it does feel like you can get a little bit more, like even a pick thrown in, or a dart throw young player or something on top of that. But it's for sure an interesting conversation. And then this contract stuff too. Like, how far does Tua fall if he's not on the Dolphins? Like,
yeah, probably pretty far.
Like, probably people put Goff over him. It's tough to know with the rookies because we don't know what they're going to do. But I mean, it is tough where he's located, because it's like you have Goff. Okay, maybe you can argue Goff over Tua, but then you have 2 rookies and May and McCarthy after him. Bryce Young, Will Levis. Like, we need to see something from those 2 guys before we put them over Tua. And then, like, Baker, So, but he falls pretty far if he's not on the Dolphins. Like, and that's, I think, a real possibility that's true. Like, again, Mike McDaniel comes from the San Francisco tree, and what San Francisco has done is they've kind of devalued the quarterback a little bit to a certain extent, being like, we can put in Brock Purdy and make him look like, an above average quarterback, and we'll be fine. Or we can go to the Super Bowl with Jimmy Garoppolo. Like, they've kind of devalued the quarterback to a certain extent, and maybe Miami has that same philosophy. It's like, hey, whatever quarterback we put in, the fall off between Tua and this quarterback we can put in is not $55 million a year, essentially. So, I don't know. It's pretty interesting for sure. I agree with you with the Odunze. Probably wouldn't straight up, but Drake May's interesting. He definitely is. What if it's it can't be. I was gonna say it can't be anyone else, right? No way Jaden Daniels or Neighbors makes it there.
Yeah, maybe I'd say Neighbors would have the best chance in a super flex league, I mean, 3 quarterbacks and Marvin Harrison go in front of. Oh no, it's 6, huh? Yeah, it's possible, but yeah, not likely.
Yeah. Any other thoughts?
I was just going to say, if it's anything like the startup that I'm in right now, like, it would be that way. Like, these guys are quarterback hungry.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, again, the whole startup, potentially the cheapest you can get a quarterback, but depends on how your league drafts as well. What about Goff? Like, just real quick to wrap it up, like, would you take Goff or Tua straight up?
Yeah, I know. He's kind of an interesting one that I was kind of thinking about, because he's right after Tua. And honestly, I'd rather have Goff, and that kind of, like the age concern is not there for me. It's like a 3-year difference, Goff just got his payday, and we've seen him, perform well with the talent around him. It's kind of a similar situation, like, maybe, but I don't know. I think Goff's revitalization with Detroit is real, so I kind of like him over Tua.
Yeah, I think I would too. I think I would take him straight up over Tua. But yeah, good conversations. And let us know in the comments what you think, what we're wrong about, what you agree with. And we'll be back looking at some running backs and some buy, sell, hold in the next video. So we'll catch you guys then.